Hello and welcome to this course. My name is Julia Masalka and this is Designing for Your Social Media Brand Identity. Nowadays, social media and digital products play a huge role in our everyday life. From Instagram and Facebook to TikTok and Twitter, the visual world is taking up more and more space in people's lives. You as a business owner can use this to your advantage. If you're still not using social media to promote your products, it's time to change that. The key to an effective social media branding is being consistent in the way you communicate with your clients. In this course, in collaboration with Moodle, you will learn how to create your own social media brand identity. From finding the right fonts to designing a color palette and reusable brand assets, we're going to work hands-on building out your social media design templates. Then you'll learn how to animate and export your posts for publishing. With the purchase of this course, you will receive access to design files that will help you work alongside me throughout the course. As a result, you'll be able to create your own brand assets and put them together in content pieces with ease. Alright, let's get started with our brand identity. First of all, let's explore the art direction for our social media brand. For that, we'll be putting together a mood board. I recommend platforms like Pinterest, Instagram, or Behance as source for inspiration. You can also go get inspirational content by going to a store that you love or taking a photo of a specific theme that you like. A mood board is a collection of visuals that will set the mood. So let's set the mood for our brand identity. Feel free to open up the provided starter file for the mood board and work along with me. Alright, we are here in Adobe Illustrator. I have opened the starter file. If you don't have Adobe Illustrator on your computer yet, make sure to download it in advance. We're going to put the link at the bottom in the description. Alright, so this is our mood board file, and here we have several shapes that we can fill in with images. Also, please take a look at the notes at the bottom where it says that the sources for inspiration online could be, for example, Pinterest, Behance, Instagram, or Dribbble. And while putting together the mood board, you can also source inspiration from branding, lifestyle photography, art, and even your environment. So as I was saying, you can go to your favorite store or you can look at your favorite products and you can get inspired by that. First of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Pinterest and I'm going to go and look for, in a search, I'm going to look for the type of brand that you want to do. So for example, if you know that your brand that you're designing is going to have a specific character, you can definitely look it up in the search bar. So what we're going to do is I'm going to type in, let's say your brand is going to be minimalistic or bold or colorful or elegant. You can type that all in and then find the inspirations for that. So let's start with, for example, a modern minimalist brand. I'm going to type in modern minimalist branding. Alright, now we have a bunch of visuals pop up and you can take a look at what you think represents your personal identity the best. Alright, so we can take a closer look, and whenever we select a specific visual, we will get more visuals similar to that. So for example, here we have this amazing modern and elegant minimalist branding for a jewelry brand. Now, of course, you don't necessarily have to design for a jewelry brand, but you can get inspiration from a jewelry brand. There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from a brand that doesn't have to do anything with what you're designing for. So let's grab our visual, and what I like to do is I like to take my mood board file and then I just like to pull in the image, and I'm sure this is possible on the Mac. You have to experiment and maybe take a screenshot when you're working on Windows, but we're going to keep on doing this. And I have pulled in one image. As you can see, it's already in my Illustrator file. Now I'm going to go in and see maybe I can find something that is going to be interesting for me as well. I think this Venice brand also looks very, very interesting for me, and I think the color palette kind of matches what I want to achieve. So I'm going to take another image and I'm going to pull that one in as well. Now let's take a look what else we've got. So I'm going to scroll down here and see, maybe I want to go into something a little bit more specific and zoomed in, because right now you can see this is a collection of different visuals that are combined together. We can always go back and we can see you know, the original sources that we were looking for. And here we also have some logos and typography, which is also a good way to get inspired. And I think this this image here will be great. This is actually a GIF. So let's take another look what we've got. I think this image could be really inspiring and really interesting for us. So again, I'm going to pull that one in. And as you can see, I have space right now for 8 different images, and right now I have 6. So let's take another look at what we can find. And what I think is really inspiring are experimental fonts like this one. So maybe I can take a look at what else we can get, maybe something like that. I can also pull that one in. Let's see, yeah, that worked out. Perfect. I also really love this color. I think this color could also be helping us a lot. And whenever you're pulling in the images, make sure to keep your brand in mind. Keep the character of the brand in mind that you're designing for. And sometimes when I'm designing for clients, they already come you know, prepared with a specific strategy. So I already know who is their target audience, who is going to be have to be attracted to these visuals, right? Who is going to be spoken to. And that's something really important to keep in mind when designing a brand identity. You always want to keep in mind the person who you want to attract with these visuals, right? So let's keep another look out, and let's see what else we can come up with. I think this image also looks very interesting to me. It kind of represents my brand. Now that I have clicked on that image, I have more choices around here. So I think this one also gives a really good mood to what I want to achieve. So I'm going to pull that one in as well. And maybe I want to go back and see what else you know, I've got, what kind of other directions I've got that could be interesting for me. And I think this one is also interesting. I really love those small elements. I really love the play with type here. So I'm going to pull this one in as well, just like that. All right, now let's go back into our search, and let's look for just minimalist branding. All right. Now, this might give you different results, which is something that I want to achieve. I think that could be really helpful for us to get different perspectives, right? So I think this visual also could summarize really well what I want to achieve. Just keep in mind the brand at all times, and I'm sure you will be able to find inspiration that can help you. And you can not only get inspiration from graphics, you can also get inspirations from photography. So let's take a look at minimalist photography. And I'm sure we'll find something interesting here as well. So I think something like this could also represent the mood that I want to go for really well. So I'm going to pull this one in. And although this image does not necessarily have to do with what I'm designing, it still translates the mood. And this is the purpose of a mood board. We want to create a mood, and the mood can be made by colors, photography, typography, and different types of graphics that are symbolizing specific things, right? So it's important to always keep in mind the target audience, and then you'll be able to find the right visuals. Now that we have our visuals, let's create clipping masks. I wanted to share that with you, which is a really cool way to kind of create a frame for an image. Right now, I'm going to take that image and I'm going to place it to the back. So I'm going to right click, arrange, send to back. Now I have this frame kind of covering this image, and I'm going to hold shift and select the frame and the image together, right click and make clipping mask. Now I have created a clipping mask out of the rectangle that I already had, creating a like a frame for my image. All right, so with that, I'm going to go in and continue doing that for all of my images. And don't forget to place the image to the back. Again, right click, arrange, send to back. And again, I am going to adjust the image just a little bit so it fits just into the frame as I want it to fit. And I'm going to hold shift and select both the rectangle and the image, right click, make clipping mask. And like that, I'm going to go on and do that for all the images. I just found an image that's actually by my friends, The Weekend Creative. So now we can see we have a good collection of images, and they don't only include graphics, they also include photography, they include graphic elements. Like for example, here we have these flower looking elements that remind of plants and that look very soft. We have typography inspiration, we have little graphical elements that are going on here as well. We have shapes that are framing our photos, which can also be a great inspiration for us. And plus we have colors, we have lots of colors. We have this gold green that's standing out, we have these earthy tones that are standing out, we have these very light gray tones and beige tones that are standing out. So all of these things are part of our inspirational mood board. Now let's go to the next step. The next step on our journey to a brand identity is typography. Typography is a crucial part of a brand. The right font selection can help attract the right audience and express the brand's character. There is a fine line though between an expressive brand typography and an overwhelming one. So let's take a look at how to find the right fonts for your brand and how to combine them. Now that we have figured out our mood for our brand, let's take a look at some fonts. Because we already have an idea of what we're looking for, it will be super easy for us to find the right fonts for our brand. So I'm here on fonts.adobe.com, and here we will be able to do some research and activate fonts into our Adobe programs. Again, the link is fonts.adobe.com, and I'm going here into Browse Fonts. And when I get into Browse Fonts, we will be able to see the different categories that we can search for. So for example, we can type in our name and we'll be able to preview our name with the fonts that we want to look at. And on the left side, we will find the tags. We have calligraphic fonts, we have clean fonts, we have friendly, luxurious, futuristic fonts. So here I would like you to find the right category that works for your brand. Every brand has a different character, as we discussed. So I would like for you to explore the different categories and find the right one that's going to be matching. Another way to look for fonts is to look for font packs up here. Here we will find fonts that already are combined together, and it's a really great page to build a brand. As it says here, we'll be able to see the different fonts and the way we can combine them. Here we have some more font packs, so we can literally go through all of these and take a look. Maybe we'll find something that fits for our brand. But for now, I'm going into Browse Fonts, and as we were talking about typography, we also need to understand that there are different types of fonts that we will need for our brand. We will need a header, a subheader, body copy, and an accent font if you want. It's not a must. What's really important is that the header is the largest scaled font in our hierarchy. The 3 fonts that we will definitely need for our brand are going to be in this hierarchy, as you can see in this starter file. The header font is used at the largest scale. Then we have the subheader, which is usually a blurb underneath the header. And then we have the body copy, body text. That's going to be used in a very small scale. So we need to make sure that the body font is legible and functional. A design is only good if it's functional. And if you select the body font that's not going to be legible, at a small scale, the design is not going to be functional. So this is very, very important that the body text, the body font is well legible. So as I was saying, the subheader is usually used to write a tagline underneath the header. And also it's a font that gives some character to the brand. But the font that gives the most character to the brand is actually the header font. Because it's so well legible, we can be really experimental with this one. While for the body copy, I would recommend a simple sans serif or a serif font that's well legible. For the header, you can become really experimental and try out fun things that are going to bring character to the brand. So let's go back to our fonts.adobe.com page and let's explore some of the fonts that we have. We have fonts that are categorized luxurious. Now let's take a look at those. Why exactly are they luxurious? I'm going to select one of those and I'm going to show you the difference between serif and sans serif fonts. If we take a closer look at this, if I'm going to increase the size, we will see that the letters in this font that's labeled as a luxurious font is a serif font. And if you look at the letters, they all have these little legs and these little top parts over here, these little hook looking things. So this is a font category that's called serif. Those little elements inside the letters are called serifs. Now, guess what's a sans serif? A sans serif is a font that does not have those. So if we go into the clean fonts, we'll be able to find fonts that don't have any serifs. So let's take a look, for example, in Zeitung. Zeitung has no serifs, as you can see. It's a sans serif font, and it does not have any of these elements that we saw in a serif font. And sans serif in French means without serif. And so this is how you can recognize a serif and a sans serif. So for our body copy, I recommend you a very simple minimalistic font, like a sans serif. Now, if we go back to our font categories, we will not only find serifs and sans serifs, we will find fonts like black letter, which also have a lot of character. We find calligraphic fonts that might look very classy and very handwritten. So I would like for you to pick the fonts that you think will work with your brand. Here on the left side, you can also find the different classifications. We have sans serif, serif, slab serif, script. A script font is similar to this, where it looks like it's handwritten or hand-drawn. Then we also have monotype, which is also a different type of typeface. Now, please take a look at all the different fonts and find yourself some fonts that will work for your brand. Here we also have the category called friendly. So if your brand is rather trying to be approachable and friendly, one of these fonts, for example, New Spirit, would be amazing. All right, so I would like for you to pick one font that's going to be for the header, that's a little bit more experimental, one font that's slightly giving it character, but also is well legible for the subheader, and a very functional, well legible font for the body copy. Now, if you want to add an additional font for your accent, you can totally do that. The accent font is, by the way, used for accents like page numbers, titles, or just single words that are going to create some type of hierarchy inside a layout. So please take a look at these 3 different fonts that we will need and select yours. As the next step, we will be taking this into our logo. Wow! Now that we have explored font combinations, it's time to build our custom brand logo. One of the things we have to keep in mind when designing a logo are the platforms that we're going to be using it in. Do we need a logo in the square format, or do we need a horizontal format? How about both? When designing for my clients, I usually do this exact exploration. I take a look at all the platforms and the media the company is using and imagine the logo in them. In the end, the logo is the face of the brand and it needs to be functional and legible in all situations and sizes. Let's build a flexible brand logo that will go a long way with us across platforms. Feel free to open up the logo starter file and work along with me. Once you open the starter file with the logo designs, you will notice that I've already prepared some logo designs for you. And I wanted to give you an example of 3 different styles of logos. And all of these are shown in 3 different lookups. And I'm going to tell you why. If we zoom in here into Playful Cheer, we can see that this logo's character is very playful. And this is a combination of a sans serif and a script font. Whereas if we look at this more elegant and classy looking logo, this is a combination of a serif and a sans serif fonts. Now, if we look into the last version, we will see that this logo even has an icon. So here we have a combination of a sans serif and a serif font as well. Now, if we look at the different lookups, we will understand that these bottom logos are able to be used in different situations than the top ones. Creating variations of the logo and creating different lookups will help us being able to adapt the logo to different layouts and different situations. And that's what I call flexible branding. When I design for my clients, I think it is important to create a flexible brand that's able to adapt to different situations. So when you're designing your logo, feel free to use either these designs, and please just type in your name or the name of your brand by clicking on one of these objects and just typing in the name of the brand that you want to design for. So as we're looking at the 3 different characters of these logos, the left one will be more on the playful, fun, and approachable side. The middle one will be more on the elegant and the classy side, while the right one will be more on the crafty and the not so much refined side. And as they all have a different character, I would like you to pick one for yourself, right? Your logo needs to have a specific character, and this can be a type of inspiration for you to design your logo. So if you have a brand name in mind, feel free to type it into those boxes. But what I would like to share with you today is how to create this circular element. And I think it's a really fun element that almost looks like a stamp, and it's been used a lot in logo design. So for that, what we're going to be doing is we're going to create a circle first, and then we're going to be using the Type on a Path tool. So I'm going into my rectangle tool and clicking and holding and selecting the ellipse. Now I'm going to hold Option and I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to create a proportionate circle. Then pressing the letter V, I'm in the selection tool and I have a perfect circle that I can now put my Type on a Path on. For the Type on a Path, we're going to click on the Type tool and hold it, and then we're going to select Type on a Path. Then once we have that selected, we're going to click on the circle. And as soon as we click on the circle, Illustrator already puts a type on the path. In the same way, you can create a path in different shapes. So it doesn't have to be a circle. It can also be a wave or any type of shape. So I can also use the pencil tool to create, for example, a wavy line and type on the path of the wave. So now if I'm going back into type on the path and click on this shape, you can see that my typography is now aligned to that specific path. Now let's say I'm going to type in a name, playful, cheer. And by the way, whenever you have something like this, you can sample a typeface from your file. So in this case, I'm going to sample the Playful Cheer font that I have in this logo by using the eyedropper tool. And for that, I'm pressing the letter I on my keyboard. And while I hover over this font, you will see the little T element next to my eyedropper. And that means that I'm ready to sample the font. So I'm going to click onto that, and you can see that my font has been adapted to my new design that I have here. Now, this is not it. I can still go in and edit this exact wave. So what I can do is I can go into the direct selection tool, which is right under the selection tool. And now I can access the points in this curve. So I can click on one of the points and I can adjust them, and my type on a path will be also adjusted with it. So it's a very fun and playful way to play with type. Of course, in the same way, you can sample this other font. Again, I'm using the letter I on the keyboard for the shortcut for the eyedropper, and I'm going to sample that font. Letter I, and there you go. So in this way, we can sample any font that we want that we have in our file. So feel free to play with that, and I would like for you, by the end of this exercise, to have a logo that is that is placed in 3 different lookups. For example, here we have a horizontal, a square or round version, and then we also have a version with an abbreviation. So instead of writing out Crafty Brand, we're writing out C and B. So this is called a letter mark. We are using the letters, some of the letters of the brand. In the same way, we're using the letter E over here. It's a letter mark of this brand, and it's been used in this stamp style logo, again with a type on the path around the circle. So now that you know how to combine fonts and what fonts are combinable, I would like for you to create your own logo and to create 3 different lookups of it so that we can go into the next step and so that we can experiment with color. Now we've got our font selection, we have our brand logo. Now let's bring in some colors. The next step for us is a brand color palette. Bold, colorful, or earthy, let's explore how and where to find the right colors for your brand. All right, color is so exciting. It can bring so much character to a brand. In the starter file that I've provided you with, that you can open in Adobe Illustrator, you can feel free to check out the 4 different color palettes that you can use for your own brand, or you can also feel free to pick your own. If we take a look at the 4 different color palettes, I wanted to kind of help you try to analyze what's the best color palette for you and how to pick your colors. So if we take a look at the earthy color palette, we will find tones that you can find in nature. Right? An earthy color palette represents the raw, the nature, the something that's not finesse, something that's handmade, something that's handcrafted. So an earthy color palette can bring something really raw into the brand, and something that's looking very natural and very unrefined and not artificial, right? So if you're, for example, dealing with natural products, an earthy color palette is perfect for you. Or if you have any kind of brand values that are have to do with nature, or maybe you have an eco-friendly brand, an earthy color palette can help you kind of translate this feeling into this brand. Now, if we take a look at the bold color palette, we have some experimental tones in here. So we have this pink, we have this very unusual green, we have a lot of contrast, we also have a yellow that's a little bit off, a little bit more on the earthier side, an orange that's a little bit more on the earthier side. So we have colors that are natural, but colors also that look a little bit more artificial, and also a lot of contrast. So a bold color palette is definitely something with a lot of contrast, a lot of color, and colors that are, opposites of each other, right? So that's something that defines a bold color palette. Now, if we look at the minimal color palette, we will see that the colors are actually really minimalistic. You can see several tones of the same hue. For example, we have this darker gray, and then it goes into a lighter shade and a very light shade. There's still a lot of contrast if you compare this dark color, this black, with this almost white color. There is a lot of contrast. So a minimalist color palette built of the contrast and of color repetitions, maybe using tone on tone colors, really not having a lot of bright tones, and if you have a bright tone, maybe just one, that's going to be a color pop. So yeah, that's what defines a minimal color palette, something that's more repetitive and a little bit more on the contrasty side also, and less color. Now let's take a look at the friendly color palette, and we will see a lot of pastel looking tones that are mixed with white. So for example, we have this very soft pink, and what makes a color soft? It makes it soft if we use a brighter shade of it. So for example, if I take this color, if I would make a copy, I want to show you an example of how this would not look soft anymore. So I'll go here into my color fill, and I can make this really harsh, like this for example, and it almost looks aggressive. So it's not that friendly anymore, and that's how you can create kind of a friendly color palette. Let me also show you another example. For example, if we take one of the brighter tones, let's say for example here we have this yellow that's very aggressive, and this pink that's very aggressive. So let's sample that real quick and create a soft tone of that. So I'm going to use the eyedropper tool with the key I on my keyboard, and I'm going to sample this very harsh pink. Let me take this over to my soft color palette, to my friendly color palette, and let's compare these. So you can see that this pink is almost aggressive. It's very biting into your eye and very catches a lot of attention. That's not what a friendly brand kind of represents. But I wanted to show you how to make that color a softer tone, and that we do. For example, if we take a look at the color scale here, we have the white, so the least color and the lightest here top left, the most color and the lightest on the top right. The bottom we have bottom right, we have the most color and the darkest. So we have the darkest pink here, and here we have the color saturation going down, and here we have the least color and the darkest. So this is how this kind of color composite works. And so to get a softer tone of a color, what we have to do is we just have to move into the white direction, into the lighter direction, and instead of this pink being so biting, now we can move it over here and kind of create a soft tone. Now this looks way softer, way more feminine, way more fragile, way more approachable and friendly, right? So think about that when designing a color palette. Think about the tones and what they represent, right? So maybe you have associations with specific colors, and maybe like a light blue, for example, could also be a really good friendly color, because we think of the sky and clouds. We think of something very soft, and color is all about association. What do we associate with a specific color, right? So for example, if I would take a very biting green, so let me find that. So let's say we have this type of green, right? That's not a green we find in nature, so it does look very aggressive. It does not look very friendly. It looks very bold and very artificial, so that would not fit into our earthy color palette neither, right? So make sure to kind of find associations that you see with your brand and translate them into color, right? And in the same way, if you're building your personal brand, what I like to do is I like to ask others about, what they think of me as a designer, what they think of me as a person, as a brand, basically. And that I would translate into color and into fonts and into graphics. So that's kind of how we take those characteristics and translate them into the different graphical elements. Okay, so we have these 4 color palettes, and I wanted to share with you some tips of how to create a good color palette. And I think in my experience, a good color palette is one where you can find at least 2 tones that are very contrasty in each other. So for example, we take these 2. They will be very contrasty, so if we put them on top of each other, we can see a very high contrast. So a color palette needs to have at least 2 of those tones where you can build a lot of contrast. In the same way, we can also see these colors having a lot of contrast. If we put them together, we can see that there is a big difference between these 2 colors, right? And in the same way, we also have this light shade here and the dark shade in this bold color, in this minimalistic color palette. So contrast is really important in a brand color palette, because if you look at, for example, any type of print, you will need to use color. Let's say you want to use your logo on a colorful background. You will need to have a color for the logo and for the background being part of your brand color palette, right? So you will need to see that logo from afar, and to see something from afar and to make a design functional, you need a lot of contrast. Okay, so in the same way, we can also build a contrast here in our friendly color palette using this very light color, although all of these colors are pretty colorful, so we can still build enough contrast with this red and this off-white. In the same way, we can also build contrast with this off-white and the orange, or we can build the contrast with the off-white and the blue. So this is a very well functional color palette. And in the same way, we can also combine these tones. So also think about how you're going to be using this color palette, right? And the more products you have in your product line, and sometimes you want to differentiate the products through color, you will need maybe a secondary color palette just for your products, right? So while this would, for example, be the primary color palette for your brand, you will need to build another several tones of color just to kind of to represent your different products that you have. So, all right, so we have that. Now I want to show you a couple techniques of how to extract color from things, from different inspirational sources. So when, for example, you have a mood board like this one, and the mood board that we built in the beginning of this course, you can use the one that you've made. So here we can take a look at what kind of colors are in your mood board, and colors that are kind of repeating themselves. Because if you have a specific mood board, I guarantee you will have at least one tone that will repeat itself over and over, just because this tone represents your brand really, really well. So looking at this color palette, this mood board, we can see that we have a lot of bright tones. We also have this light cream color repeat all over and over, right? Take a look. We have this color here. We have that color here, we have it over here, similar, we have it right here. So that's one of the colors that should be probably part of our brand. And by the way, these are all different resources that I've put together. So please do not copy a brand color palette from an existing brand. That will not bring you further, and that will not make you stand out from the rest. So what I would like you to do is take an exact look at your mood board, at your inspirational board, or maybe some inspirational photos or resources that you have put together in your mood board. And let's take a look at those colors and let's put them together in a color palette like this one. And I always say a good brand color palette has between 5 and 8 colors. So here, these color palettes are all containing 6 colors, but of course feel free to add more colors to the palette that you pick, or maybe if you create your own, don't get stuck into my preset. Don't only use the 6 colors because it's already set up. Feel free to add more colors or less colors, okay? So now let's try to adjust this, and let's try to modify this this color palette presets that I've created for you. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to select one of these rectangles, and I'm going to use the letter I on my keyboard, and I'm going to sample one of these colors. So for example, this orange is also a color that's repeating itself over and over, okay? So I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to select another rectangle, use the letter I, and then I'm going to grab this beige tone that we were talking about. I feel like that tone has been repeating itself, and it really builds a mood here and in the mood board. And then we also have a pink that's repeating itself. So if you take a look, we have a pink here, we have a pink here, we have a pink here. So I'm going to take this pink, and I'm going to use the letter I again on my keyboard, and I'm going to sample that color, and I'm going to adjust that. In the same way, I'm going to take the next rectangle, and I'm going to sample this color. All right, so the next color here, we see a little repetition here, so I'm going to use another tone here. Maybe we can go for a little darker, like a blue maybe. That will work really, really well. And now we also need a contrast color to our other colors, so it could be either a very light tone or a dark tone, or in this case, both I think will be perfect, because then you have the opportunity to use a light tone on color or the dark tone on color, or dark on light and light on dark. So now I'm going to take that last rectangle, again using the letter I, I'm going to sample this color over here, and we're getting this pretty dark color. All right, now I would like to share with you something where you can find names for your colors. First of all, let's rename those colors, and I always recommend you to work with color codes. A hex code can go a long way when maintaining your brand across platforms, because these colors that you have put yourself together, they all have different codes, and those codes you can see when you click on the fill right here at the bottom. Hopefully you can see this. That's the exact color code for this exact digital color. So that color we can reuse in our website, we can reuse it in our social media, we can reuse it everywhere we go. And so that's really important to kind of note down those color codes and repeat them over and over to bring cohesion into your brand. Okay, so we're going to take this color code, and I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to modify this color code right here, because that's not the correct anymore. And what I like to do is I like to always have it in caps, just because caps are nice. And another thing that I wanted to share with you, so here we have something that says Dutch white. That was Dutch white before, but one thing I would like to share with you is how to find names for your colors in your color palette. And it's a really cool tool. It's called Coolers. So let's jump right into it. So this is Coolers, and here we can start the generator, and we can take that color code that we just had in our Illustrator file. I had just copied that. So what we can do is we can go in here into the color code, and we can Command and V, we can place it in here, and automatically it generates a name. So if we go down here, you can see it generated a name called Flame. So that's how I like to name my colors. I always take the color codes, bring them into Coolers. And also, by the way, Coolers is just an amazing way to get color palettes as well. So what you do here is basically you press the space bar, and every time you press the space bar, you have a new color palette pop up. Let's say I like this light yellow, I can lock it. Now every other color will be modifying whenever I press the space bar. So now let's say I want to lock this slate gray as well. Now let's see what else we've got. Oh, this rich black looks awesome as well. I feel like it will work so well with my brand. So I'm going to lock that one as well. And now I'm going to continue. And this field drab color also is really great for me, and dark purple. Great, awesome. I have my color palette now. So this is a really cool way also to put yourself together a color palette. And again, it all comes with color code, so you can take that color code and really take that exact same color, put that into your Illustrator file by clicking on the background shape, and then just Command and V paste it into your fill color, and that's the same exact code that we just had in Coolers. So That's my recommendation. So adjust your color codes, name your colors, so that whenever you are building something new or building a new design, that you can get back to that and look at the color code and place the exact color that you have in your brand color palette. All right, so now that we have a brand color palette, we can also I can also show you different ways of how to find color combinations, tone on tones. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to take this moss green, and I'm going to click Option and Shift, just copy it to the side. So I would like to show you how to create, I always call it color brothers. So colors that look like they belong together. And for that, we're going to create another copy holding Shift. We are going to create a copy of this rectangle. And now having that selected, we're going into the fill. And remember, we were talking about the hue, the same hue. So this exact environment, just going into more color or more darkness or more light. Here we can find a color brother for this exact color and staying in the same hue. So what we can do is to find a darker shade of this green that we had before, we can go diagonally in this direction, if you can see that. So if I select something like this, we have an amazing color match. So now I can take this and I can see, hey, is this enough contrast? And if I notice, hey, you know what? I want to create another one of these, and I want to build a tone-on-tone color palette, maybe a minimalistic color palette. I can create another copy of this, and I can go into my fill and go even deeper down. And by the way, I'm not changing anything in my color hue. I'm just going down into the darker direction of the same hue. Okay, so now we have created 3 colors that look like they totally belong together, right? That's just another tip for you to create colors in your color palette that do look like they belong together. And now we can create tone-on-tone designs. So we can, for example, use this darker shade for the logo and this lighter shade for the background to create a graphic. So that's just another way to create color combinations. Like we have, for example, here in the minimal color palette. So here we have this color that's a lighter shade and another lighter shade of this. And here in the same way, we have a very light shade, a darker shade, and a super dark shade, right? So that's just another way to build a color palette. You can take colors from a specific image. Let me show how that works. All right, I am here in color.adobe.com, and here we have one thing that I really love. It's the color wheel. We can find colors that are either analogous, monochromatic, triad, complementary, and so on. So this is also a really good way to build a color palette. And one other thing that I love here are the accessibility tools. So here we can find color contrast and check if we have any contrast in or enough contrast in our colors. So that's definitely a really good tool. But one thing that I want to share with you is the extract theme tool here. And here you can just drag and drop any image of your inspirational board, or you can even just drop in your whole inspirational board that we've built together and extract the color theme. So I want to show you how. So you just take your regular folder and you can just drag and drop the file in here, and color.adobe.com is going to extract the color palette from this image. So here we can also go in and modify the color extract. So we can go in and modify the little spots where the color was sampled and kind of adjust it to our own needs. And then we can take that color palette, and again, we are working with hex codes. As you can see, we can copy and paste those hex codes by clicking onto this little rectangle element. And once we have done that, we can go in again into our color palette, go in and Command and V, place the color, and we can work with those color palettes, with those colors that we have extracted. We can also save them to our CC libraries, which is something that we're going to be talking in the next section. But here you can go in and select the color, the library that you want to put the color palette in, or you can even create a new one. So here in this case, I'm going to create a Moodelier color palette, and we can save it to that color palette by clicking Save. All right, so this is just another amazing way to extract color themes. One other way that I want to share with you is called Adobe Capture. All right, we are on my iPhone in Adobe Capture, and once you open it up, you will notice that you can find different things here: types, shapes, colors, looks, patterns, and you can extract all of these things from any visual from your live camera. Then you can also adjust the colors as you want. You can adjust the different color tones and change them up, adjust them to your needs. Then you can also go in and select which color tones you want to show. Is it RGB, CMYK, lab, or HSB? So that is also an option here. After that, you can save your color palette to your library. You can also even check the color harmonies, and again, you can go back into the image if you want to as well. So there's a lot of modification you can do afterwards. So if you have a favorite brand or any product or any image that you want to extract the color theme from, this is a really good way to get your inspirations into your computer. And then again, we can save it to our CC library. So here we have the Moodle one, and we can click save, and our color palette is already saved. Then, of course, we can go in with the live cam and even take an image of ourselves, or just save the color palette of ourselves if we want to. Again, we can go in and adjust the colors and select the spots that we want to get the samples from. And again, we can save it to our CC libraries, in this case to the Moodle one. All right, now that I'm back in Illustrator, I can access all of these resources that I just collected from Capture here in my library. So once I go into the Moodle library, I can see my color palettes were added. And here in the color palette, again, I can sample those colors. So I can just take any of these colors from my CC library and just add them to my color palette. So feel free to do that. There are different ways to get color inspiration, and I'm hoping I could share some of the ones that you're going to be making use of today. So now that we have our color palette, let's jump into the next step. Whew. You might notice that in the previous steps we have defined some of the brand assets, like the logo, the typography, and the color palette. Now it's time to combine those and bring our brand to life. As the next step, we're going to take our logo design and create color combinations for it. Feel free to open the logo and color palette starter files for this and work along with me. Let's get back to our logo design starter file. Here you can see that I've already created a file for step number 5, where we can apply the color to our logo. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the color palette from earlier, and we're just going to Command C, copy it, and paste it into our new file with Command V. Right there. So we have our colors nice and accessible. What you can also do is you can save these colors to your libraries by going into the libraries and then clicking on any of the elements filled with color, and then clicking the little plus element at the bottom here. So once you click that, you'll be able to select from fill color to graphic or all. But we're for now going to save the fill color. So I'm going to do that. And that you can do for each and all of these colors, so that you can then access these wherever you go across Adobe platforms. So now I'm just selecting all of the rectangles with the colors and adding them to my color library. Okay, there we go, fill color. Now I already have all of these 6 colors there. Now I can go into my logo, I can select it, and I can apply the color to my logo. So in this step, what we want to do is we want to find color combinations for our logo. So let's go in, and I'm going to remove this for now because I already have these colors saved in my libraries. So what we're going to do is now we are going to create a new artboard. It doesn't matter the size, but I just want to have a white background so that I can compare the colors. Now, I hope you have created your logo already. If you don't feel confident enough to create your own logo, feel free to experiment with these. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to take these elements and we're going to group them with Command and G. Select all of the elements, Command and G to group them so that we'll be able to access them better and experiment better. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create rectangles filled with color. So I'm going to create rectangles in this type of format, and I'm going to create copies of that, and I'm going to make them different colors. So I'm selecting from some of my brand colors. You always have to have the shape selected in order to be able to change the color in the shape. All right, so we have that, and I'm going to make another copy of that, holding Option like that. Okay, now let's try out our logos, and maybe we can even add some other colors in here. Maybe we can just select different tones, and so that we can really experiment, concentrate on the experiment while doing that. Okay, something like this. Now let's take our logo. So I'm going to grab this one, holding Option. I'm going to place it on top of my shape. Now you might find that the logo will disappear in the background. We're going to right click, arrange, bring to front, and now you can select, while the logo is selected, any of the other brand colors. So in this case, I'm going to select this light color, and you can see we have a really good preview of how this color combination of this light beige and the dark green work together. Now let's create an opposite. So I'm going to create a copy, holding Option. I'm going to make that logo dark green. I think that these two colors work really well together. Now let's create another pair of copies and place them on top of the other logos. And we're going to click Command and D to repeat that step, or we can simply select them and copy them again. Now you might find that some of the logos don't have enough contrast. So let's, for example, take these two colors right here. I don't think that this will work for us. So we can definitely, this will definitely help us make our decisions for our brand, right? Which color combinations are not going to be usable. In the same way, I feel like these two colors, which is the dark green and this ochre color, do not look like they have enough contrast. So what we can either do is we can extend our color palette with another color by going here, and we're going to go into our fill color, and we're going to create a darker version of that green, just like so. And once we have enough contrast, we can place that color into our color palette, and we can still modify it. We can still work on our color palette. All right, so now we can take this fill color and again add it to our library as a fill color. So this is how you build the color palette, by experimenting color combinations and trying things out and trying things on top of each other, just really experimenting and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Now, in the same way, we can also place the rule into our brand guidelines that these two color palettes are not supposed to be placed on top of each other to avoid too little contrast. So now that we have our logo in color, we can save the different colors of our logo to our library, to our CC libraries as well. So we have our color palette. Now I'm going to select all the different colors of the logo, and I'm going to add that to the library by adding the graphic instead this time. So now that you can see here, I'm adding the graphic to the library, and you can see I'm saving it in a light color. I'm saving it in the darker shade. I'm going to save it in this lighter green as well. All right, so now that we have all of these things, I'm going to throw these things out for a second. So now that we have all of these things in our CC library, we're going to go in and we're going to create groups. One group will be logos. And once that we have the logos, we can drag and drop the logos into it so that we have everything nice and organized. These logos and colors we can then access in other Adobe platforms. But first of all, we want to create this little organization for ourselves where we can access all of these different assets like colors, fonts. You can also save your character styles here that we've created, so that we have everything nice and handy wherever we go. All right, it's time for the next step. finally, we have all of our necessary elements ready, and we are now well prepared to create brand assets like social media templates. In the upcoming lesson, we are going to discover a variety of layouts we can use for social media, for example, and we are also going to create our reusable social media templates. Please open the social media templates starter file and work along with me. Back in Illustrator, let's open up our social media template file and let's take a look at the different layouts I've prepared for you. Now you might notice that some of these shapes are cut, and I would like to share with you how I did that. Also, we have our library ready. We have our logos in different lookups for different situations, and we have our color palette. We have some photos that you can also add to your CC library and simply access and drag and drop into your files whenever you need them. So feel free to do that. Here, for example, I have one of my product images that I'll be using for my templates. Then I also saved my character styles. As you can see, I have my 2 different fonts that are part of my branding, and I have all of these things super handy now, and I can just get started designing. All right, let's take a look at this shape over here. I wanted to share with you real quick how you can make something like this yourself. And for that, we're just going to grab a rectangle and create a rectangle just like so. I'm going to use one of my brand colors, let's say this green here. Then to create this wavy kind of division between two parts of this rectangle, I'm going to use the pencil tool. And also you can use the shortcut N for that, and you can draw any shape you want. So you can, for example, draw something like this, or any kind of line or any kind of shape that you want. Now we have this line and we have the shape, and we're going to select both of these. Then we're going into our properties panel. If you don't have the properties panel show up, go into window and activate properties. Now we're going into our Pathfinder right here in the 3 dots, and we're going to click divide. Now our rectangle has been divided in 2 parts, and that's a really cool way to create a layout for yourself and play with color. So we can take the rectangle. Right now it's grouped, so we're going to click Command Shift and G to ungroup those 2 elements, and now we can feel free to move them, and it's a really easy way to kind of bring more character to your brand. All right, so let's make the top part a different color. I'm back in my libraries. Maybe we can use the light green, or maybe we can use the other colors. And this is how I basically created this type of layout. Now I have my logo inserted over here, so that's what that will look like. All right, cool. So this will be a template for Instagram stories. Instagram stories are sized 1080 by 1920. So if we go into our artboard tool and take a look at our artboard, we'll be able to see that the layout is 1080 wide and 1920 pixels tall. All right. Now, another thing to keep in mind when designing for social media templates is that we will have a space up here and down here where we should not place any important information because it will be covered by the interface. All right, so for that, what we're going to do is we're going to use the view and use rulers. So here I can show rulers, and you'll see we'll have the horizontal and the vertical rulers show up. So now I can click and drag a ruler in here, and we want to keep 250 pixels at the top and 250 pixels at the bottom. So something like this, and this is the space that where we should not put any important information because it might be covered by the little message bar that we have at the bottom. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to kind of make sure that our logo is within that safe space, and just to make sure that we don't put any important text or anything important down there. Now that we have pulled in these guides, we can make sure that our templates are adjusted to that, and also we can start putting in our images. To put in an image into our design, what we want to do is, I'm going to remove that for now. You want to use our libraries, or you can simply drag and drop the images into your file. So in this case, I'm going to use this image right here. I'm going to place it into the file, and I'm going to adjust it just around the size that I need. So I'm going to do something like this. And so while dragging around and resizing the image, we want to make sure to always hold shift so that we resize proportionally. If I don't hold shift, my image will be distorted, and that's not something that I want. Okay, once we have placed the image like so, I'm going to right click, select the image, arrange, send to back. And now I'm going to select a shape that we have cut out earlier. Make sure that the shapes are not grouped anymore. And I'm going to select those two, and I'm going into my properties and click make clipping mask. Or I can simply right click and make clipping mask. Now my image has been added to my template, and my template is ready to go. Now here we have another template, and here you can feel free to adjust your character style. And as I was saying, you can save your character styles to your library. So here, for example, I can change up the character style to a different one that I had from before. Or whatever your brand fonts are, you can totally feel free to adjust that. This is all live text here, and you can totally feel free to make it your own. All right, so now we can go in here again. I'm going to ungroup these, and here we have a background color and we have a foreground color. So here we have two shapes. We have a pink shape that's a little bit shorter than the green one, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add a photo and then create a clipping mask with this shape. So again, I'm going into my libraries, I'm going to pull in an image like so, or you can simply drag and drop the image from your files and place it just around where you want it to show, something like this. And I'm going to again place it to the back, right click, arrange, send to back. Now I'm going to select the image, holding shift. I'm going to select also the pink rectangle where I want to place my image, and I'm going to right click, make clipping mask. Let's see, okay, like that, make clipping mask. There we go. So now our image was basically placed into that frame of that specific shape. And we can still go in, double click, and we can adjust and reposition our image the way we want to. All right, so now let's go to the next one. Again, you can feel free to modify the text here, and whatever you want to announce here, you can put there. And I recommend to put an abbreviated version of your logo here, a letter mark or anything stamp looking in this case. So now let's select this portion here, and I'm going to place another object in here just like so. By the way, these images are from Unsplash, from amazing artists. But of course you're going to be using your own imagery here. Okay, so now I'm going to place that here. I'm going to right click, arrange, send to back, and now I'm going to select the image and the shape, the orange top shape, right click, make clipping mask. There we go. It's that easy to modify these templates. And here I have created this arch shape, which is a very popular shape these days on social media. I'm going to show you a quick way of how to create this shape. And for that, we're going to click and hold the rectangle tool and go down until we are at the rounded rectangle tool. We're going to create a rounded rectangle, and then we're going to select the two top corners, this one and this one, holding shift. So we have selected the two top corners, and now we're going to drag these radiuses into the middle. And it's that easy to create an arch shape. And then again, we can just drag and drop an image in here like so, and we can fill that arch with an image again by placing the image to the back, right click, arrange, send to back, and selecting both. I'm going to create a clipping mask. So that's another way to do that. So let me remove that and let me place my image actually in here, and I'm going to clip it with this element over here. I'm going to click make clipping mask. Now we have this final sale shopping event going with our logo in it. We have this this announcement, sale announcement. Then we have our shop now call to action post, and we have our just any product announcement story. And then of course we can create ourselves templates for our posts. And for that, we're going to use the artboard tool. And once we are in the artboard tool, we can use presets. As you can see, we can design for different purposes. And you can also use presets for any type of media that you want. But what we want to do now is we want to create an artboard that's 1080 by 1080. So it's going to be a square artboard, and we can adjust that by going here into the properties again. Right click here and 1080 by 1080. There we go. Now our artboard is adjusted to the exact size that we need for our social media post. Now there are different types of posts. You can create a horizontal, a vertical post. So feel free to do that for yourself as well. Now, of course, we can take this template and we can modify it to our square. For that, I'm going to hold Option, create a copy here, and I'm going to place that on top of my new artboard. And now I can simply adjust my logo to where it's kind of in the middle. And now I can create myself a clipping mask again. I'm going to use the rectangle tool, and I'm going to create a square just across the my artboard. I'm going to select all of this now, and I'm going to make a clipping mask. Now my post is perfectly matched into the square box. Now let's get into the interesting part. Let's export these posts, make them usable, and also let's get into animation. I'm going into File, Export, Export for screens. Exporting for screens will give you the best settings to export for a screen in the size that you have set in your artboards. So our stories are perfectly preset for viewing it on the mobile device. So now I can select all the artboards, all the artwork that I want to export. Here I can click Clear Selection, and I can select the posts that I want to export. And then I'm going to click Export Artboards. Here we can either export in PNG or JPEG. It does not really matter, but I would not recommend exporting in SVG or PDF because those file formats are not image files and they're for more complex exports. So in this case, PNG or JPEG are perfectly fine, and we're going to click Export Artboard, and now our artwork is ready to post on our social media. Now let's get to the next step. When scrolling through Instagram, you might have noticed that static images are a thing of the past. That's why I believe it's necessary to implement motion in social media posts. Today, I would like to share with you my favorite way of creating simple and easy animations in Adobe XD using Auto Animate. I have prepared a starter file for you to open in Adobe XD and to work along with me. All right, we are in Adobe XD now. Although I have Illustrator still open and active here with my templates, and I'm going to now grab one of these templates, just like so, with Command and C, and I'm just going to go back into XD and place it in here. And you can see XD does a really good job of really placing something fitted into the artboard. So these are my artboards. If I zoom out, you can see they are also in Instagram story size. And what I want to do now is I'm going to take that design that I just copied and pasted, clicking Command Shift and G, I'm going to ungroup all of the elements. And now you can see I can move them around like this. Okay. Now what I can do is, again, we have the CC libraries here at the bottom, very handy with a little book element. And here we can select our brand that we've been saving our assets into, and we can totally take any of the things and place them into our design. But another cool trick that I wanted to show you here before we start animating is, if you select any of these shapes from your templates and you take any of your images, drag and drop them from the libraries into that shape, you don't even have to create any clipping masks anymore. That image is going to get placed right into that shape. So now we can double click into this and adjust the image inside that shape. Then we're gonna click out and we can see that our image was already perfectly placed into our template. Now we can go in and adjust the size of our logo, and here it's important to turn off the responsive resize here on the right side so that our design is not getting distorted. Now I can go in just like so, and I can still go in and adjust the color of my design here as well. So you have a lot of freedom, and you can still take the logo as well and adjust the color here as well. Just experiment what works best. Now let's get into the fun part. Let's get into animation. For that, I'm going to take this same artboard and I'm going to hold Option and create a copy of this, right? Now, how this works in Adobe XD is that we create a transition between two artboards. We create a specific action that is going to happen. And for that, we need to make the changes between the artboards. Now, for example, let's say I want the image to zoom in quickly, right? I'm going to double click into this and I'm going to increase the size, double click again and increase the size of the image. So let's say I want to have this interaction happening between these artboards. Now, right now I'm in the design section of Adobe XD. When I go to the prototype section, I can select the artboard, drag this little arrow onto the next artboard, just like so. Now we have this connection. And on the right side, we're going to determine the trigger to be time and to have a delay of maybe 1 second. So that means we will wait 1 second until the transition, so the animation actually starts. Now, an important thing is also to determine the type of action being auto animate. It's my favorite feature in Adobe XD. It creates really stunning animations between graphics, between colors, between so many different things. And here we have the animation happening inside the image that's going to zoom in, right? Now we're going to determine the easing. Maybe we're going to select ease in and out. Easing basically is the speed of the transition between in the beginning and in the end. Right now we have easing into the animation and easing out of the animation. So that means the beginning and the end of the animation are going to be slightly slower, so it creates a really nice smooth effect. And the duration of the animation, what do we want it to be? Maybe we want it to be a really nice long animation that's going to be part of our story. So we're going to put that as 5 seconds. By the way, the maximum amount here of seconds are 5 seconds for the animation. Now, fun part is we're going to preview our design. We're going to preview our animation. So for that, click the little play element here at the top, and we're going to click that. And you can see our animation is getting shown to us. All right. So again, let's do that again. I'm clicking play, and we have 1 second until the animation starts, and then it zooms into the image. How cool is that? Now we can also create another interaction. So we're going back into design, and what we can also do is we can make the logo get bigger once the image also starts growing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first logo and I'm going to size it down. So it's going to go from a small logo to a large logo. Now let's preview our animation. We're going back into prototype, and I'm going to select the first artboard and click preview. Now we can see that our logo and our image are growing together. Awesome. Now let's make this animation useful. And I'm going to click preview, but also I'm going to click the record button at the top. Now I'm recording my interaction, I'm recording my animation, and my story length now is 7 seconds, which for the Instagram stories, we can create a recording up to 12 seconds. So I'm going to now save this, and this animation, once it's recorded, is saved as a MP4 file. Now I can take this animation, it's perfectly formatted for my Instagram stories. I can airdrop it to my phone and I can post it into my story. Now let's try another example. Let's try another design from our Illustrator file, and what I'm going to take is I'm going to take this second design. Make sure to not select the rulers, and I'm going to click Command and C to copy. I'm going back into XD. I'm going back into design, and I'm clicking Command and V to place the design into my story. Again, I can go and ungroup it, Command Shift and G, so that my elements are accessible by themselves. Now I can again place an image in here. Let's say I want to place the image of this candle in here. There we go. Right now the image is being accessed from the CC libraries, and that's why it takes a second to load, because it's all located on the Adobe Creative Cloud, where all of our Creative Cloud documents are located. Now what I can do meanwhile is I can resize the image to fit the rectangle, and I'm going to place it. I can see it in a blurry format for now because it's still loading, but that's totally fine for me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this other rectangle, the green rectangle here, and I'm going to make that, or actually let's try something else. Let's make the logo come up. So I'm going to create a copy of this, holding Option and Shift, creating a copy. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the logo come up from the bottom. All right, I'm going to group these two. I'm going to group the logo and the image. Let's actually do that first. I'm going to group the logo and the image, Command and G, so that XD knows that that those two belong together and that the logo does not disappear from my artboard. There we go. I again created a copy of this. Now I'm going in and I'm selecting my logo, and I'm going to place the logo so it reaches out of the artboard. As you can see now, it's shown in light gray. That means XD tries to tell us, hey, that logo is not visible anymore, but it's still there. So in our animation, what is going to happen is this logo is going to go all the way up until where it is right now. So now let's go in and create the animation, and we're going back into our prototype mode, and again we're taking the little arrow right here and placing it on the second artboard. Again, our trigger is time. The presets are still set from the last interaction, and I'm going to make the duration of the animation go for 2 seconds because we don't want it to last for too long. Now I'm clicking preview, and now you can see my logo coming up. Yay! How fun is that? Now let's do the same thing again. Now let's record it. And for that, I'm going to place the delay being 2 seconds, so I have a little bit more time to press record. And I'm clicking play, and I'm recording. And now my interaction starts happening, and I'm already recording, which is perfect. And now I can keep that going up until maybe 7 or 8 seconds. There we go. Now I have my cool animation of my logo popping up here recorded, and I'm clicking save. And now I can place that animation onto my phone, send it over, or just airdrop it. Cool. So this is just another really cool way to create animations for your social media. Let's try another example. So I'm going back into Illustrator, and what else can we do here? So let's say we have something like this, and we're going to have a little sail element built into that. So I'm going back into design mode, clicking Command and V, placing my design, and what I'm going to place here is text. So I'm going into my text element, text symbol here. I'm going to create a text box, and I'm going to write out sail. Now I'm going into my character styles in my library, and I'm going to use my Calder Dark font, and I'm going to use one of my brand colors for my typeface. Okay, now let's make that real large. So I'm going into my text settings, and I'm going to make that maybe around 200, something like this. Now I can go in here and I can type sail once more, and I can go in and adjust the distance between the lines. Right now they're really close by, that's why it looks like the sail letters are placed on top of each other. So I'm going to adjust that here in this portion right here. So I'm going to select the number, and I'm going to click up on my keyboard, and as you can see, the lines are now getting more distance, and our sail text is moving apart from each other. So that's what I want to achieve. So something like this. Maybe now I can create a copy of this with Command and C, and I can Command and V, so we have a little bit more of these, and Command and V There we go. All right. And I'm going to remove that. So something like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make that just a little bit smaller, and we're going to arrange the text in the center. So let's take that and let's make that real large. So I'm going to make that even 300, something like that. And I'm also going to increase the line height, being 200 or maybe 250. Just experiment what works best. Something like this. Now, what can we do with this? What I also want to do is let's actually increase that by some more. There we go. So we have like a long sail element here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create a copy. First of all, let's actually add an image in here. So I'm going to ungroup this, Command Shift and G. Now let's select the top part. Let's move that away for a second. The top part, and I'm going to insert an image in here so that you know, the customer knows what the sale is all about. So I have an image in here now, and now I have the sale portion. Let's actually adjust the image just a little bit over here because it was not quite covering the whole area. So something like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a copy of this, and we're going to move this sale up, right? So actually let's adjust the color of our sale right here. Maybe something like this, maybe the green. All right, but feel free to select a color that builds some contrast here. And here maybe we can select a darker tone, something like that. All right, so now I'm creating a copy, holding Shift and Option. And now I'm going to move those up. So holding Shift and moving these all the way up. Now let's create the animation. I'm selecting the first artboard. I'm going into prototype mode, creating the connection, dragging and dropping the little arrow. And again, our trigger is time, our delay is 2 seconds, and the duration will be maybe 4 seconds or maybe 5. Let's make that a little bit longer. All right, perfect. Now let's preview. Actually make sure whenever you added the duration here, make sure to click enter before you go. But now let's preview our design, and we have the 2 seconds delay, and now we have our sail moving up. Yay! How cool is that? Now let's repeat that and let's record it. So I'm clicking record, and now I have my sail moving up. How cool is that? And now we can add a call to action, and this is a really cool self-animated post, really easily made in Adobe XD with Auto Animate. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to your social media brand identity. We started out with visual inspirations and a mood board, then we learned about typography, designed a logo for your brand, and brought it to life with color and in reusable social media templates. This course might be over, but our journey of learning does never end. If you have any questions about this course, or if you would simply like to connect, feel free to reach out to me through Instagram at Masalka. I wish you good luck with your brand identity, and I hope to see you thrive with design.